Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
And this is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
Alissa, imagine that you're going to a fancy affair, a night out on the town, and you have this classy strapless dress, and you decide to maybe wear a strapless bra, maybe braless, I don't know, maybe some pasties if you're fancy. You head out for a night out on the town. Now imagine yourself, you're on the dance floor, or maybe, if you're me, filling a plate with food somewhere, and then it happens. You look down, a full-on nip slip. The dress is pulled down, and it's showing.
Grandma?
That's Grandma. That's right. She says, shame on you for your immodesty and not wearing a proper brassiere.
Oh, that's your Mormon
You will
grandma.
pay the consequences.
Coming after you with the modesty. Never had those talks directly. So just to be clear, Grandma is pulling down your strapless dress, making your titties hang out.
Yep. Making you feel the shame.
To make a point about how you shouldn't be wearing a strapless dress because it's not modest.
Hey,
so
don't try to logic this.
Making an example of you. Okay, Grandma.
Exactly.
She's like, you wear something with a nice turtleneck. Any formal events.
Yes. The
High
higher,
collar.
the better.
Yeah. Okay.
All the way.
All right. Britt, do we just talk about titties and grandmas on this podcast?
Only about half of the time.
I never say the word titties. You said it, and now it's just opened this floodgate that I can say it, but I never, ever, I speak in ways I never would. You're such a bad example.
I know.
God.
Sorry, Grandma. Sorry.
Britt.
Sorry. No, what do we talk about, Alissa?
We talk about true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
That's right.
Or supernatural. I was thinking about this the other day. The word supernatural may be more encompassing of what we talk about.
I've got some supernatural stories
Okay.
tonight.
I have a question. What do they call titties in Ireland? Tatas?
I was going to say tatas.
Patatas?
Patatas. Oh, your patatas hanging out. Excuse me, miss. Your patata.
That was weird. I don't think so. Maybe bangers? Knockers? I don't know. I'm just naming food that I think they might call.
Bangers is a sausage, which would be more of a penis situation.
Oh, yeah. You're right. Bangers and patatas. Just so you know, I quickly Googled it, and an Irish slang for breasts/tits/boobs is jugs. One of their favorite ways to say that.
That feels like such a 1997 spiky-haired bro way of saying boobs.
Jugs.
Hey,
Jukes.
look at her jugs. Yeah.
And then there's also another one that says kika. The Irish for a woman's breasts is kika.
Kika, that's cute. I can have some kikas. That's good.
It says I think that implies that Irish boobs are pointy. So, okay. You got those. There you go, Britt. You just own that. No backing out.
Hey, sure.
Hey, Britt, why are we talking about Irish words for boobs?
I am so glad that you asked. So, if you remember, a couple weeks ago, you told me that we have officially hit the charts in Ireland as number 27th in documentary podcasts. So, this is in honor of our Irish listeners. We are heading over to the island of Ireland, and we have Irish stories, some Irish haunts, if you will, for everybody tonight. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
You go first.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to tell you the story about Ireland's headless horseman.
Ooh.
This happens in, oh boy, pronunciation's going to be fun today. Here we go. This happened in a place called Cribbilly. It's an airy... Okay, that's a word I do know. Okay, this happens in Cribbilly, an area in Ballymena at the White Gates estate. It is known to be haunted. Now, I've heard a couple of versions of this story, so I'm going to tell you both because they're both pretty good. The first story I read goes that a horseman stole a large amount of money from the estate. And as he was escaping towards the gates with his loot, the guards at the gate decide to run a string of wire across the gates. And as this thief is speeding on his horse through the gates, the wire decapitates him instantly. And it is said that to this day, you can hear horse trots in the area when there is no horse present. But
wait, did the horse also get decapitated?
No, just the man. But for some reason, it's the horse clops that people are hearing. Okay. But a better version, which is my favorite, was written by Mark Telford. And I'm just going to read his whole story because it's pretty delightful. Sometime in the earlier centuries, Squire O'Hara was probably one of the wealthiest landowners in Borough and had, you know what? Quick pause. I'm going to pronounce these things. It's going to be wrong. You guys just know that it's going to be wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to stop every time. Just know it's going to be wrong.
No.
Okay,
yeah.
Borough.
Terrible.
And had extensive contacts throughout Ireland and the U.S. and had been called off for some important business abroad, being the nobleman that he was. He was married in his early 20s to the most beautiful maiden. Unbeknownst to Squire O'Hara, his beloved was having an affair with his most trusted friend, and whenever a chance arose, the two lovers would be together. One day, O'Hara returned from abroad earlier than expected. He was in a jubilant mood and couldn't wait to see his love after his absence. It was a dark, stormy night when Squire O'Hara came to his home in Crebilly. On entering the mansion, he was greeted as usual by his butler, but was aware that his attention was trying to be diverted. He raced upstairs and found his trusted friend and wife in embrace. He fell to his knees, and he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He arose in a rage and cursed them both to hell, and he would have his vengeance in this life or the next. Squire O'Hara tore out of the mansion in blinded fury, enraged by his lying mind. He straddled his horse and took off down the lane. As he drew nearer, he noticed that the gates were closed, but no matter. His horse was more than able to jump it. But as he rose the horse over the gates, its two front legs caught the top of the spikes on the gate, and he tumbled backwards off the horse and was horrifically decapitated by the spikes. A few days later, he was buried in the graveyard at Ballymorrow, in a full-fitting column with a carved likeness of him atop. But that night, there was a fierce storm, and a bolt of lightning cut off the head from the column. A few months later, in the mansion, there was gossip of strange goings-on around the land of O'Hara. Butlers were terrified to spend any time on the property, and of course, everything had been left to his love, the estate and all their wealth. But as time went on, she became more paranoid. She eventually bore a son to her lover, and a short time after that, a vicious fire in the mansion happened, and they all fled from it, vowing never to set foot in it again. Rumor has it that the wealth was buried in the basement of his stately castle, and it is still there waiting to be rediscovered. The only thing is, no one remembers the location of where the mansion was built. But on every Halloween, he stalks the land of the White Gate estate, searching for the people that betrayed him. Bum, bum, bum.
Ooh, I want to go treasure hunting. Let's go find that fortune. Ooh.
I love a good buried treasure.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, couple things. I'm gonna go out and say this was not an accident. This fellow was murdered with a capital M.
Oh.
You know why I say this?
Yeah. Okay. Why?
Because they had a full-size likeness statue ready to go for his burial the next day. They had his gravestone carved. You can't just whip out a big old life-size carving in 24 hours.
It just says a few days later. Like, yeah, a statue. Where'd they get that statue?
Yeah, they've been planning this. It had been planned. Also, that whole wire, I'm going to buy that one. That's actually like that shit happens. People get decapitated by wires, and that is horrifying that happens in real life.
Because it would happen so suddenly, you wouldn't even realize that you were dead. Like, it would just be like, oh, I'm riding my horse, and then, oh.
Yep.
Gone.
Like, there was a story a few years back about some kids who were out drinking and driving home wasted, and one of them starts barfing out the window, and his buddy's driving, and he kind of swerves too close to like a telephone pole guidelines. Like, so there's the pole, and then there's the wires that come down to kind of like hold it in place, and whoop, friggin' he gets decapitated, and his body's still hanging out the car. And then his buddy goes home and parks the car in the driveway with his decapitated head still in there, and like wakes up in the morning. Someone found it in the morning. Real life. This really happened a few years ago.
Did he just think his buddy was slumped over, like he threw up, and then was like, let me just hang out the car window?
I am not sure. I think there's a lot of
been so wasted.
Blood. I'm sure he probably, I mean, even in that state, I imagine you have a horrified reaction, but probably then maybe just try to sleep it off and pretend it's not real, or just forget about it by the time you get out of the car. I don't know. Also, let's just keep going. What is it? Barbed wire. Like, that's another issue, like out in the country. I had a friend who told me, I think it was one of his friends, was out like riding ATVs or something with and then didn't see the barbed wire and freaking decapitated.
No.
Yeah.
That's not decapitated, but my dad told me a story of when he was a kid, and they were like riding horses, I think, around their property, which now that I think about it, I don't remember him saying they had horses. So I don't remember, but they're riding horses around the property, and his sister yells out to him, "Duck!" And he looks up. Where? In the clothesline, he snags him. It must have been not his throat, but his chest or something. And he flies off of the horse because instead of ducking his head like he should have, he looked up for the duck and knocked him straight off the horse.
Well, at least he didn't lose his head. But yeah, that could be dangerous. I bet that didn't feel good. And then our friend out in Colorado, Erica, she, I don't know, maybe in their 20s, they were out somewhere in the woods ATVing on a old trailer, maybe dirt biking on an old road, and a car came along and drove them off the road, and she went flying down this hill and into barbed wire again, and it clipped her jugular, and she like almost bled out there, and she's got a big scar on her neck from that.
How did they? I guess just pressure, right?
Yeah,
she should have been dead. That's so crazy.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's pretty nightmarish. Going through a pile of barbed wire. That's a nightmare.
It doesn't sound like things that happen in real life that can happen. So I'm for those reasons, I'm gonna go. I liked the whole theatrics of the second story, the second version, but I kind of think either he was murdered or that fucker just ran into a stupid wire and cut his head off.
Yeah.
Either way, great story. And I believe it 100%. Very plausible.
Another reason to go to Ireland, not to get decapitated, but to find some treasure.
Oh, yes. I mean, does he try to haunt you if you try going for is the treasure cursed?
True. The treasure would have to be haunted. I mean, do you risk it? Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you bring some treats or something, and you may be able to bribe
Leave an offering.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have a story?
So I do have a story, and I am, I suppose I'm Irish American. I've got Irish roots back in Ireland. I've never been, but my family immigrated at some point from Ireland. And you've always heard the little saying, scream like a banshee. She was screaming like a banshee.
Yeah.
I've never exactly known what that meant. I think it's some like wild-haired, like screaming woman. I think I may have seen it.
That's what I picture. Yeah.
On an episode of DuckTales, I think, now that I think about it, is my point of
Seems
reference.
Like a credible source.
I'm sure Scrooge McDuck was there, even though he's Scottish, but I think, kids show. So I was like, what the heck is a banshee? So I found a couple of interesting sources. So I'm going to preface with this. I'm going to tell you what a banshee is. A banshee is said to be a fairy in Irish legend, and her scream is believed to be an omen of death. The scream is also called Caoin. No, okay. Again, my disclaimer, don't know. I have no clue how to pronounce any of this. The scream is also called keen, which means keening, and is a warning that there will be an imminent death in the family. And as the Irish families blended over time, it is said that each family has its own banshee.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I was trying to find so then that made me go Google all my surnames, my Irish surnames, to see if there's a famous banshee attached. I didn't get far on that. So my answer is probably no. And so just kind of trying to find some stories about this is one gal says, I'm from Ireland, and from experience, I believe banshees are real. I know so many others who have encountered them as well. Her wails are horrible. You literally freeze in place if you hear it. And she's attracted to people close to death, and often you'd hear her knocking on the windows of the ill as a warning.
Ooh. Yeah, that's eerie.
And then this is from the site yourirish.com. Often heard before she is seen, her wailing is so high-pitched that nobody would dare willingly attempt to witness this terrifying spirit. In Ireland, the banshee does not bring or cause death. The ghost warns loved ones that death is near, giving the family a chance to prepare. Some myths say she acts as an escort to ensure that their loved ones pass safely to the other side. So stories of the Banshee in Ireland have been passed down generation by generation for centuries. Some legends say the Banshee is the ghost of a young woman who was brutally killed. Her death was so horrible that she now watches families and loved ones, warning them of impending death. According to legend, the Banshee can also take on many forms. However, in Ireland, she has been most commonly seen either as a beautiful young woman with long flowing silver white, sometimes red hair, or an old woman in rags with dirty gray hair, long fingernails, and sharp pointed rotten teeth. Both descriptions also give the Banshee eyes, which are noticeably red from crying so much. And so here are some appearances that the Banshee is said to take. An old woman dressed in black with long gray hair and covering her face with a veil. An old woman with long white hair, red eyes, dressed in a green dress. A deathly pale woman with long red hair, dressed in a white dress, sometimes a shroud. A beautiful woman wearing a shroud. A beautiful woman with silver white hair wearing a long shimmering silver dress, carrying or using a silver comb. A headless woman naked from the waist up and carrying a bowl of blood.
That would be noticeable.
I bet she was wearing a tube top or a strapless dress at one point. I think they just shimmied on down.
They forgot that
Maybe her
detail.
nipples scream. That's where the screams come from. I like this. That's my new Banshee. Then the nipples just open up.
It's very melodic.
Oh my God. Okay. Although she appears in many forms, one thing that all the witnesses of the Banshee agree upon is that she has a most terrifying wail. The Banshee is famous for her melancholy keening, which is an Irish word that is used to describe the lament that women used to do over the body of a deceased person to ward off spirits. So people,
could you do a example of
oh,
that
because
for
you think
me?
it's in my Irish blood, a wailing.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Let's hear it. I love your flailing arms to go with the wail. That was good. See, I imagined something more like. But that's too deep because you were saying the Banshee's wail.
It's high pitched.
It's
That's
high
right.
pitched.
It's supposed to be high pitched.
The Irish winds.
It's not, I just blacked out there for a moment. I don't even remember what I was doing. Did I just do something? What were we talking about?
Possessed by the Banshee.
I really got into that.
That was beautiful. That was brilliant. Good job.
I don't know. I guess it wasn't me. We'll see. I hope no one dies. I hope my neighbors. One. God. Whoops. Sorry, everybody.
Mitch, stay away from cats.
He couldn't have heard it. He's not like only somewhere nearby. All the birds just like boom, 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 fall out of the trees. Okay. Originally, it was said that the Banshee only keened for the families O'Grady, O'Neill, O'Brien, O'Connor, and Kavanagh. However, there are stories from various other families, and she particularly favorites those with an O or a Mick in the surname, such as O'Brien or McNeil, for example. My family is O'Shea. I've got some O'Shea. So a personal account of the Banshee. Stories have been passed down through generations of Irish families with their personal experiences and meetings with the Banshee, and this family was no different. I remember being told as a young child of an uncle who was walking home on a cold and blustery night. He was probably 3 sheets to the wind after partaking of a snifter to keep the cold out. I imagine that's a drink, right? On arriving home, he told my grandmother that he had tried to comfort an old woman he had met along the way. Describing her, he said the old woman was dressed in black with a veil over her face and was crying and wailing outside the house. Every time he went over to her, she moved away, but all the while she kept pointing at the house. My grandmother, with all her knowledge of the old Irish mythology and legends, knew straight away that this old lady represented and hurried my uncle to bed, reassuring him that she herself would have a look for the old woman. Needless to say, she didn't dare do such a thing. Then, sure enough, only 3 days after this strange encounter, my grandmother's brother died peacefully in his sleep. As children, we used to plague my uncle to recount the story of the night he tried to invite the Banshee in for tea.
Ooh.
That was a Banshee story.
I am fascinated by this. I love it. Do you have another Banshee story? I'm in for it.
I do. And this one is from, Cork, as in the county Cork in Ireland.
Oh, nice.
And this story is from Willie Good, and he's explaining a terrifying incident that occurred many years ago on the night his neighbor passed away. It all started with a disturbing noise. The noise, he says, he initially put down to cats outside his house. Within seconds of careful listening, he knew that wasn't the case. The noise would move, go out to the front of the house, then around to the back again, he recalls. This was going on for a full quarter of an hour. Eventually, it stopped, and Willie went to bed and fell asleep. The next morning, he learned that both of his neighbors, a father and daughter who lived just a quarter mile up the road, had passed away during the night. Willie puts the noise he heard down to a visit from a double banshee, when several banshees appear at once, warning of the death of someone great or holy. In some parts of Ireland, the banshee's horrible moan is described as the wail or keening of the bean chanta chaotnit. I don't know. Not. It's like a lot of consonants. Okay.
Quite the word.
Keening, and it means keening woman, though. Okay. Bean keening.
Okay.
Some stories record the sound as being so piercing that it could shatter glass. Willie remembers that, according to local legends, the banshee was only believed to follow some people. In certain families, there would be a knocking at the door to let them know if there was going to be a death.
Good story, Willie.
Willie, I love that.
Ooh, a double death, too. Okay, here's my question for you.
Okay.
Would you want to be warned? Because they're playing it off as like she's doing you a service so you can prepare for death. Would you want to know before a loved one or yourself was about to die?
Like, if it was more specific, like, oh, I'm gonna kill Mitch tomorrow at 12:30. Like, that would be helpful. And they'll be like, okay, well, I'll make sure I like sit down and spend some nice time with Mitch. But these just broad stroke of a scream
of like,
who's it gonna somebody be? And this guy would have thought maybe it was someone in his house, but it was just the neighbors down the street, right?
Oh, good point. Good point. He's like spending all this time with his family, pack in the love.
Yeah.
And then it's not even his house.
I would prefer a more specific omen than just a general broad one. No, I don't think I want, because then I'm like,
specific with your banshee.
Exactly. With your keening.
With your keening.
Yeah. I'd like some preparation. I like that. I like a heads up.
I mean, first story, you said, they murder because they had the statue. Maybe it wasn't murder. Maybe they heard the keening, the wailing, and they said, you know what? We are prepared now.
Better get carving.
Create a statue.
I mean, but maybe it was a very specific keening because they got the right one. Or we'll just carve this and then wait till the very end to carve the face. We'll just start. Let's just start at the feet. And by the time we get to the head, we'll know who this is for. Not a bad policy. I wonder if they just have them all like, maybe there's a bunch of like faceless. Yeah. Like faceless statues. And then you just kind of fill in the details.
Chisel
at the
the
end.
face in. Yeah.
Last minute chiseling. So that's the deal with the Banshee. I
love it. I love a Banshee. I always imagined it as this like kind of menacing woman, but she sounds like, kind of helpful. I think Banshees get a bad rep.
Yeah, I did not know they had red eyes either. That's something that I was unaware of. A new detail.
Yeah. I learned a lot. That was good.
Do you have another story?
I do. I'm pretty excited about this one. Okay. Came across it online and instantly knew it was one I needed to share. This is about the Ballyboley Forest in Northern Ireland. Ooh. Have you heard of this before?
No.
Me neither. The Ballyboley Forest is believed to be a gateway to the Celtic underworld due to its distinctive stone arrangements and circular trenches. Local legend credits a high number of disappearances to the forest from the 15th to 17th century. Now, I was directed when researching this forest, saw pop up a podcast called This Paranormal Life, and it is hosted by two Irishmen with delightful accents. So it was not hard to listen. So I got some information from them and other online sources. Okay. In 1997, two men decide to take a walk in the Ballyboley Forest. On their way, they're stopped by a local who strongly encourages them to turn back. They ignore the old man and wander into the forest. As they go deeper into the forest, they begin to hear strange noises. They're eerie, but nothing alarming, until they hear a woman moaning in pain. It sounds like she's hurt, so the men start running towards her moaning, until it sounds like the moaning is directly in front of them, but there's nothing there. Then the moaning stops, and it's completely quiet. Then, they hear a loud scream right behind them. That was enough to make them shit their pants and bolt right out of the woods. As they reach the edge of the forest, they look back and see four hooded figures wearing brown robes that are covering their head. It is believed that the four hooded men are hooded druids. Ooh. And these dudes have been seen more than once in the forest. They've been seen wandering around people's tents while camping, standing in the darkness, and at the edge of the forest holding lit torches. So druids in Irish folklore are men serving lords and kings, sort of as like a hybrid priest, but with like mystical abilities, like a wizard of sorts for the king. They're notorious for sacrificing animals and humans. And in the past, they used to use criminals. Like if you were caught, stealing or murdering, instead of going to jail, you will just sacrifice you. So they would sacrifice these criminals in several different ways. They would burn them alive, they would drown them, they would hang them, they would stab them. And what these druids would do is they would watch how the body reacted to dying, of maybe how their like limbs convulsed or their body convulsed and their limbs flailed. And they would use this body's reaction to predict the future.
Ooh, I did not know that about druids. Absolutely not. But I did think once people started disappearing and then there's like druid hooded figures, I was like, ooh, human sacrifice.
Yeah. So
okay, wait a minute. I just want to know.
Do you want to talk about druids more? Okay,
they kill people. They watch them twitch, and like if they twitch to the north, they're like, "There's a storm coming." Like, what kind of predictions are they making?
Excellent question. No idea. Like, yeah, I wonder if they're simple predictions of like, like on Thursday we're getting a rainstorm. Or is it a prediction of like, oh, your cousin is going to die in a horse accident? Like, I don't know.
Maybe it's just yes, no questions. And maybe the guy like puts a thumb up and is twitching and puts a thumb down.
Yeah.
Shakes his head no.
If it's the left arm twitching, it means yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know the science of the It's got to be, something you can research somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so I have a first-person account of this forest involving the hooded figureman. Another one, in addition. So this one happened in 2005.
Oh, it is current. That was my next question. I couldn't place this in time. Okay.
When I was 13 and in my third year of my secondary school, I took part in an outdoor team building scheme called the Duke of Edinburgh Ward Scheme. For anyone outside of the British Isles, it's when you go on an expedition, a hill walking and mountaineering in groups for about 6 to 2 nights. Oh, wait.
Huh.
Hold
Interesting.
on. I think I should have read this before.
6 on the long end. Welcome to my world, Britt. Why?
Okay. Hill walking and mountaineering in groups of about 6.
Okay.
For 2 to 3 days. Okay. Not 6 to 2 days. Here we go. It's normally organized by schools and churches and also involves charity work and skill building exercises during the year. When you're 13, you're eligible for the bronze level, and in my area, this involved a reasonably straightforward walk with the exciting but daunting prospect of camping for one night right in the middle of a local forest, Ballyboley Forest in Northern Ireland. Now, I wasn't the fittest of kids, but it was with a group of friends, and it turned out to be good fun. The first few days involved nothing more exciting than navigating fields and hills, and went without incident. On the last night, we ended up camping in the middle of Ballyboley Forest with all of the other groups. It was the very foot of a fire break. And a fire break is a long, thin stretch of ground with no trees, which means that you can see for quite some distance with nothing hindering your vision. There were no teachers or leaders at this campsite, so naturally, all hell broke loose. At about 8:15, as the light was beginning to dim, someone in another group began to ramble on about seeing people at the other end of the fire break, moving about between the trees. In case it was another group who'd gotten lost, a few of us marched up to the fire break to check it out. It was about a 5-minute walk, and there was nothing but more trees and shrubbery, not a road or a natural footpath in sight. It wasn't taken very seriously until about an hour later. We were all gathered around a gas stove having hot chocolate when someone else noticed some kind of movement down at the far end of the fire break. This time, the figures that had been previously sighted were holding some kind of torches, but this is where it got a bit stranger. Rather than the modern mag light, because in Ireland they call torches flashlights. Oh, no, other way, flashlights, torches. The figures seemed to be holding what were either branches that had been set on fire or some kind of oil lanterns that you held out in front of you, which is what us Americans just call torches.
Yeah.
Okay. On the same page. We counted 4 of these figures. This is important to remember. Someone later that night who lived on a farm and would therefore know a bit about this, claimed that after the figures vanished, they could hear sounds like a slaughterhouse in the distance, echoing cries and squeals of animals. Needless to say, after the figures vanished, our young imaginations ran wild and we began to assume the worst was about to happen. In a small and very religious country like Northern Ireland, you're brought up hearing of stories of the witchcraft and devil worship that supposedly takes place in secluded forests. And it took a lot of discussion and freaking out before we decided that someone should ring the nearest teacher with our group's emergency phone. But eventually, more rational voices began to pipe up and assure the more frantic campers that it was probably just another group in the forest. And we decided the best course of action was for everyone to go to their tents and keep their flashlights handy and stick together.
I love the word torch better. I wish we called them torches. I love that.
Me
much
too.
more.
But it is a little confusing.
It is when people appear with actual torches. It is confusing. It does make for a confusing situation.
They do sometimes call them mag lights, which are, the big flashlights.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Okay.
The next morning, save for a few rumors of figures and lights being seen running around the tents, we laughed it off and carried on with the expedition. Eventually, it was rarely spoken about, and it became one of those stories that as you get older, you find yourself struggling to remember if it was even real or a dream. Fast forward 8 years. Now 22, I was flicking through articles on Facebook when I came across one called 10 Most Haunted Forests on Earth. It contained some of the usual ones like the suicide forest in Japan, but I was amazed to see Ballyboley Forest was included as number 5. It mentioned the usual paranormal activity that a lot of old places have, but it intrigued me enough that I decided to research things a bit deeper. Then I came across a website called The Shadowlands, which documents real ghost and unexplained stories in Ireland. Its segment on Ballyboley Forest, it explains how locals believed it was the site of druid rituals and sacrifices, and how some of the stone formations and trenches they created are still there. But every hair on my body stood on end when I read about that 1997 encounter of the 2 men walking in the forest who saw the 4 hooded figures. And then they cite the 10 most haunted forests on Earth. So I think, yeah. So, yeah. Stories. So additional stories besides the 4 hooded figures coming out of the forest are, in 1994, a couple hears screaming sounds coming from the forest as they're walking through it. And they look down as the screaming is happening and they see dark smoke circling their feet. And they did not stick around. They bolted after that. But do you remember when I first started talking about how the forest is known for Celtic mythology as a realm to the other world?
Yes.
So this is a thing. So the other world is basically like a whole other world existing alongside our own world, almost like the veil is thinned between worlds in this forest or something. And when this happens, when the veil is thinned, when the worlds are like coexisting, the signifier for that is a magic mist. So the theory is that this smoke that's encircling their feet is perhaps this magic mist from the Celtic realm. And it's also been known through the forest to see random streams of smoke coming at random spots of the forest. I kind of poo-pooed that off because I'm like, it's a forest, people are camping. But I guess in these locations there aren't campsites, so it seems strange. But that could be another explanation for that, is that it's this otherworldly realm. And, one last thing is that somebody witnessed going through the forest trees completely smeared with blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds not good. Do they have wild animals in Ireland? Like, it's an island, and I know maybe they had a snake problem at one point, but do they have like bear or raccoons even, or tigers, mountain lions, anything, maybe deer?
I
deer
think
and
that
fox?
they have to have deer. This is an excellent question. I don't know.
No clue.
Will somebody who's been to Ireland or is actually Irish tell us what wild animals you have?
My idea, like my vision of Ireland right now,
Rabbits,
is just like,
for sure.
Oh yeah, okay. So just like all very small animals, nothing, no predators. That's it.
Like camping there would be a breeze, right? Like
yeah, that's what I
bears
think.
or cougars are going to get you. I don't think.
Lions? Wolves? Oh, maybe a wolf? Wolves seem like maybe they'd be over there, but I don't know. So as far as hearing something screaming and being murdered, like if it's not a human, then what the fuck is doing it, right? Is there any natural predator? Also, do you think this is just like a bunch of like teenage goths underneath those like hoods and are like, we're druids, man? It's their version of Satanism. It's druidism. Not that
and
to
they're
say,
just wandering around the forest with torches.
yeah, just to scare people and freak them out and stuff like that.
But then where's the screaming coming from? Do they have just like a boom box with scream sounds and they're just messing with people?
Yeah, or they're just screaming themselves.
Huh? Could be.
I don't know.
Maybe it's not men. Maybe they're all hooded women. And that's why there's like
it
women
could be.
moaning.
Yeah. I mean, or it is genuine, like practicing druids. Like, so do they think they're the ghosts of druids or are they like real people? Like, is there any idea of what these hooded figures are?
There's no idea. And if it's true that this is this like other realm, like are these hooded figures from this realm? Are they coming through? Who are they? Woo.
That's a good story though.
I love a good haunted forest. You know this. We had a whole episode on haunted forests. That one seemed just very Irishy too. Like
I kind of didn't think Ireland had forests. I just picture it as like a green mound of grass.
What are moors? Like there's lots of like misty moors around the island.
Swamp gases could explain some of the mist. I don't know. Like the fact that there's forests, I just always thought it's like lots of potato fields. This is so stereotypical. I don't know. I would love to go to Ireland.
Irish listeners.
I'm really sorry.
I don't think it's that. I think it's lush and beautiful with wild animals everywhere.
That's what Britt thinks. Okay. I actually think I looked it up recently and they mowed all the trees down, but they've like made an effort to replant forests. Like there were not a lot of forests for a while, but they've got this haunted forest that I kind of want to go to now.
I kind of do too, but we have to go together because I can't camp alone. My imagination goes wild.
I didn't say I wanted to camp there. I just said I want to visit. Maybe I'll just go for a little walk about.
A little day hike.
A little day hike.
All right. That sounds better to me.
Dig for some treasure.
It sounds less scary for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to read one more story. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Oh, please.
So my last story is a haunting Irish tale of true love. And this comes from theweirdSide.com. And the White Lady of Kinsale is a famous Irish ghost story. The tragic tale takes place in Charles Fort, where people have seen the phantom of a young bride wandering the site where she and her beloved met their fate. Wilful Warrender was the daughter of the commander of Charles Fort, Governor Warrender. She fell madly in love with an officer named Sir Trevor Ashurst, and he with her. The couple had a whirlwind romance and quickly decided to get married, which made the governor very happy. They had a grand wedding, and in the evening, the weather is fine. The newlyweds decide to go for a walk on the grounds of the fort. They were walking along the castle ramparts when Wilful noticed some beautiful flowers at the bottom of the battlements. Sir Trevor, willing to do almost anything for the White Lady of Kinsale, said he would climb down to pick some flowers for her, but a sentry on duty volunteered to climb down for him. Sir Trevor agreed, but he didn't want to leave the sentry's post unattended, so he took the man's place, asking Wilful to go and wait for him back in their chambers because it was starting to get cold. The sentry was gone for a long time, for much longer than Sir Trevor Trevor had expected. Sir Trevor waited patiently, but he was so exhausted from the day's wedding festivities that he eventually fell asleep, leaning on his musket. Shortly after, Wilful's father, the governor, came along on his nightly inspection. Governor Warner was extremely strict and organized commander. As he walked along the ramparts, he noticed what he thought was a sentry leaning against the wall. He called to the man, who didn't answer. Supposing that the sentry had fallen asleep on duty, which was absolutely forbidden, the governor shot him straight through the heart.
Oh.
When he went to see who the man really was, he realized that he had just shot his own son-in-law. Of course, after realizing his mistake, Governor Warner couldn't face breaking the news to his one and only daughter, who he loved so much, so he immediately threw himself off the battlements. When Sir Trevor hadn't come back, and probably having heard the gunshot, Wilful went back outside to look for her husband. When she found her husband's body in a pool of blood on the battlement, and then looked down and saw her father's broken body at the foot of the ramparts, she was broken-hearted. She couldn't face living without them, so Wilful wandered blindly along the castle ramparts, and then she too, still in her wedding dress, threw herself off the castle wall and into the icy waters below. Since that day, Wilful's ghost, the White Lady, has been wandering around the grounds of the fort, still in her wedding dress, looking for sleeping sentries. She wants to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen to them, and in any case, the poor soul has nowhere else to go. So there have been sightings of the White Lady of Kinsale, and people who have seen her in recent times say that she is a sad soul, but kind. One local person claims that he went out for a run one night out near Charles Fort. At that point, he stopped to retie his shoelaces. He put his hand on the fort wall to get his balance, and he felt another hand reach out from the wall and interlock fingers with him. The manager of the local White Lady Hotel said that he saw her making toast in the hotel kitchen on New Year's Eve. However, the White Lady of Kinsale is not always a kind and gentle spirit. Many soldiers who served at the fort before it was closed, mainly captains, told tales of being pushed downstairs by an unforeseen force.
Ooh.
And that is in County Cork, where I also have ancestors from, by the way.
Are you related to this lady in white?
Well, it sounds like her whole family died. So probably not. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. Ooh.
Okay. First off, what the hell happened to the sentry whose job it was to just pick some fucking flowers?
Yeah.
If he had been timely and returned, none of this shit would have even happened.
Yeah. He was up to no good. Yeah. Where the hell? So he never came back? And
Mischief.
Just like...
Where'd he go? He was like, my plan worked.
Yeah, I'll go get those flowers for you. You just take it's like my spot here. It's the old Tom Sawyer move. Goes back to ancient Ireland even. Oh, this is so much fun being a sentry.
You got me there for a second because you said he fell asleep leaning against the musket. And I was like, ooh, that musket's going to go off.
Totally.
But no, it's the aggro dad who's like, no sleeping on the job, bang bang. Like, what? Who does that? That's not cool, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Just like, oh, you're sleeping, bang, kill him. Well, now you still have an opening. That guy's definitely not going to watch it. If you had gently woken him up, you'd be like,
at least lecture first, and then kill.
Yeah,
like
the point is to protect. So wake him up so he can protect. Now you just have a hole in your armor, the battlement.
Least not protected in the slightest. Yeah.
No.
Ooh, that's a sad story. And the one where the White Lady is making toast in the kitchen is pretty hilarious.
That seems like a little marketing ploy. I mean,
dramatic tale, and she's like, "Ooh, oh, toast! Yeah, let me have some midnight snack."
Exactly. I guess goats got to eat too. I think we're out of time, Britt. But I had a couple other things I wanted to cover, but I can't do this.
Can you tell me next week because I want to know?
I'll tell you next week.
All right, cliffhanger.
Okay,
perfect. If you have an Irish tale or any kind of strange, spooky tale, we want to hear it, and you can tell it to us many, many ways. You can write us in our hot box
at SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. If you've been to Ireland and have experienced something spooky while in Ireland, because there's haunted castles all over the place. We want to hear about it. You can call in and tell us about it on the hotline.
302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. We are on all the social medias under SkeleTales or SkeleTales Podcast. You can find us. You can message us over there or just hang out and join our Gelatful? Nope, that's not a word. Delightful.
I thought you were going to say gelato. I was like, okay, that sounds good.
I don't know why. That does sound nice.
It does.
We have a merch shop, which you can find on our Instagram Linktree. I think, share with friends.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Like, follow, share, some reviews, all the reviews. It all helps us. We really appreciate it. Oh, wait, I did have something else right here, Britt. Right here. Let me just pull this up. It's haunt you later.
Haunt y'all later.
Good night.
Bye.